And we are back with another episode of The Franchise. This is the first episode in the month of March, as it's Wednesday, March 1st. In this episode, we got the National League West preview. The last episode we did the American League West. We're going to continue to work our way around every single MLB division before the start of opening day. We also got some teams in the NFL draft that could trade up and draft a quarterback. MLB Pitch Clock, LeBron going to be out multiple weeks, and Jalen Carter, one of the top NFL prospects, has an arrest warrant out for him. So we're going to talk about all of that on today's episode. Before we get into that, the franchise is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. All right, let's start with Jalen Carter, arguably the top defensive draft prospect in this year's NFL draft, and you could make the case that he's the best overall prospect in this draft. Some mock drafts have him going number 1, some have him going low as low as number 4. So he's a projected top 5 pick in this year's NFL draft. And now, today, at the start of the NFL Combine, he has an arrest warrant out for him from the state of Georgia. Obviously, he attended the University of Georgia, won a national championship there, 2 of them, in back-to-back seasons. One of the best defensive players in the country. I'm not really going to talk about the arrest warrant itself. If it's for like a hit and run car, something like that. But what I want to talk about is how is this going to affect his draft stock? Because every single year, there's in every single, whether it's NFL, NBA, in every single draft, and especially in the NFL, every single year there's always a guy whose draft stock falls because of an off-the-field issue. And the one that really comes to mind for me is Laramie Tunsil. Many years ago now at this point, was supposed to be a top 3 pick in many mock drafts. As an offensive tackle, he was arguably like the best player in that draft class. And then that draft night, the video of him smoking out of a bong came out. And then his draft stock plummeted, and he ended up getting drafted late in the first round. So how is this going to affect Jalen Carter? For me, I think, first of all, you're going to look at a lot of teams, especially at the top, that are going to pass up on drafting this guy because of this off-the-field issue. You look at him right now, projected to go number 1. I don't think he will go number 1 in the NFL draft. I think the first 2 picks, potentially even the first 3 picks, are all going to be quarterbacks. So you're looking at him either going, for me, earliest 4 or 5. And with this, I mean, we'll see what happens legally, like what will happen to him. I think there's a chance he falls out of the top 5. You know, his talent is amazing. He's obviously the best defensive player in this draft, pass rusher-wise. But his draft stock, I think, is immediately going to plummet. You know, a lot of teams really, I mean, when you're drafting a guy, you want to make sure you're drafting not only a great football player, but a great person on and off the field. And you know, with things like this that come up, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be hesitant to draft a guy based off of the off-the-field stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to have an NFL mock draft coming out very, very soon. I've been doing a lot of scouting on some of these top guys. So we'll have a mock draft coming out soon. We'll see where I have him going, as well as just some other stuff in the NFL draft. But on the same topic of the NFL draft, I want to talk about the quarterbacks, because this quarterback draft class has a lot of talent in it. It's way more it's way better than the 2022 quarterback class from last season that had Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis. And then the 2021 class, this has the potential to rival that draft class with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones. You had 5 quarterbacks go in the first round in that draft. I think this draft this year has, I think, the potential for 4. But the talent that's going to come out of here potentially could be better than the 5 that were drafted back in 2021. Obviously, the names at the top, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, the 2 guys, Ohio State, Alabama. And then you have some late risers in Anthony Richardson from Florida and Will Levis from the University of Kentucky. So you really have 4 quarterbacks that could go in the first round, and I think these guys all legitimately could go in the top 10. First of all, a lot of people are very, very high on Will Levis from Kentucky, and that you watch the film and you look at his skill set, and it makes sense. He's 6 foot. I think he's 6'4", 200 something pounds. Has a strong arm. He's decently mobile in the pocket. He's able to throw the deep ball extremely well. I wrote down his stuff. I think his arm strength is an 80, out of 100. I think he has one of the stronger arms in the draft class. He has decent anticipation and mobility. His accuracy is pretty solid as well. Overall, I gave him a 70 quarterback grade, a 70 overall grade. I'm just not as high as on him as some other guys. I think you watch the film, and a lot of people just want to point out the talent, his skill set, what he can potentially be. But you look at what he did last season for Kentucky. Okay, his receivers were gone. He didn't have a running game. His offensive line sucked. Okay, whatever. All right, fine. Those are valid excuses. And then obviously you look the year before that, he had a great year, multiple rushing touchdowns, great offensive line, great receiving weapons. I just think the film he put on display last season does not warrant him being a top 5 or even top 10 pick in this draft. I would draft him first round for sure. I think he's a guy that gets drafted middle of the first round. That's where my grade is on him. He struggled with his accuracy a lot during the regular season at Kentucky. His short intermediate passes struggled with the accuracy. His deep ball is great. I mean, he's able to land that deep ball, but when it's a short game accuracy, he really struggles, whether it's underthrowing, overthrowing, or throwing behind receivers. You saw that multiple times on film. I think his mobility and his awareness in the pocket could definitely improve. There's multiple times where there'd be multiple rushers coming at him, and he would not anticipate any of that. And he wouldn't anticipate receivers getting open, and he just didn't have great pocket awareness last season. So I think, his potential with his skill set and his size is great. I just don't think he's worth a top 10 pick in this draft. C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, I think C.J. Stroud is the best quarterback in the draft class. What he did at Ohio State over the past 2 seasons is arguably the best in college football. He arguably was the best quarterback over the past 2 seasons in college football. He has great arm strength, great accuracy. His mobility is not as strong as the other quarterbacks in the draft class. And I think he has the perfect size. So for me, he's the best quarterback. Bryce Young has played great in college. The only thing for him is his size. He's coming in right now at 5'10 and a half. And that is extremely short for an NFL quarterback. And then the last guy, a guy whose draft stock is completely rising up, is Anthony Richardson from Florida. This guy, same thing with Will Levis, has great size. He's arguably the most athletic quarterback in this entire draft. His ability to create plays, whether it's with his arms or with his legs, is top tier. He has elite arm strength, elite pocket awareness, elite rushing ability. I think if this guy gets drafted into the right system, he could be great. And a few weeks ago, I wasn't as high on this guy as many people. I thought this guy is a 2nd or 3rd round talent. But then after you watch the film and you see what this guy has, what kind of skill set this guy has, I think it's very, very easy to say that this guy's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. So what teams could trade up for one of these guys? Well, first of all, the Bears hold the number 1 pick. They have Justin Fields. I think they're trading out. Number 2 is the Texans. They will draft a quarterback. Whether they trade up 1 spot to number 1 to make sure they get their guy, or they stay put at number 2, they're going to draft a quarterback, in my opinion. It's every single other team on this list that could trade up for a quarterback. I think the most likely teams to trade up, and you've seen it in multiple mock drafts, is the Indianapolis Colts, who currently hold the 4th overall pick. the Colts have been looking for a quarterback since Andrew Luck retired. They've gone through Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. They have gone through tons of quarterbacks every single season ever since Andrew Luck retired. So I think for them, the Colts sitting at number 4 with a roster that, look, in that division with the Texans that are bad, the Titans, I think they're going to be bad next season as well. The Jaguars, who just won that division, going 8-9. And then you're the Indianapolis Colts sitting there with an offensive line that has great pieces on it. They didn't play good last season. You have a true number 1 receiver in Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor at your running back position, and then defensively, you have DeForest Buckner, Shaq Barrett. You have great guys on that defense as well. So I think if they're really a quarterback away, and the right quarterback from being a team that can compete and win that division once again. So the Colts for me are going to be a team that I think will trade up. I know they're the 4th overall pick and they could stay there. But in my opinion, I think you're looking at this year's draft being similar to 2021. I think you will have 3 straight quarterbacks go at the top. I think you're looking at Young, Stroud, and Anthony Richardson in any order going in the top 3. So for the Colts, I think they're going to trade up, whether it's to 1 or up 1 spot to 3. In my opinion, they'll trade up with the Bears. But I think you're looking at many other teams here that could trade up for a quarterback. The Atlanta Falcons, they're sitting at the number 8 overall pick. Their current only quarterback on roster is Desmond Ridder. They just cut Marcus Mariota. If you're the Falcons, I mean, this team has some work to do. They can easily win that division, first of all. That NFC South is a god-awful division. The New Orleans Saints, who knows what they're going to be? They could be a team that actually could trade up and draft a quarterback. I didn't even have that on this list. The Panthers, who knows what's going on with them? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers arguably have the best roster, but they don't have Tom Brady. So their only quarterback on roster is Kyle Trask. And then you're looking at a team like the Atlanta Falcons with pieces like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson, a nice head coach, and then a decent offensive line. They need to improve that defense. But Atlanta, I think they're a team that could trade up for quarterback. I don't think Desmond Ridder, he didn't get much playing time last season, but he's definitely, in my opinion, not the answer for the Falcons. I think they're a team that could trade up. The Raiders, they sit at 7. For them, it's going to be, do they get Aaron Rodgers? And if not, they have to draft a quarterback. I know that they could just ride it out till next season, and maybe they're bad enough, and they get a Caleb Williams. But I think they're a team that could really trade up and get a guy like Will Levis or Richardson, or even a younger Stroud. The Carolina Panthers, I don't think Sam Darnold's the answer. I mean, he hasn't been the answer his entire career, whether it's with the Jets or the Panthers. They're a team that could either sign a veteran like a Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo, or they're going to go out there and trade up in the draft. And then we have a few other teams here. Seattle. Seattle's an interesting one. Geno Smith played amazing last season. They've already talked about re-signing him to a multi-year deal. But Pete Carroll came out yesterday at the NFL Draft Combine and said, look, it's not that often that we're in this position. Right? They have a top 5 pick, obviously, from the Denver Broncos. But they just made the playoffs last season. But he said it's not that often that they have a pick, right, this high up in the draft. And with this amount of quarterback talent, they're going to have to take a real hard look at one of these guys. Now, they're sitting there at number 5. That's a really nice position to either trade up or trade down. So if a team below them wants to trade up and get a quarterback at 5, or one of the top defensive players at 5, that's a great spot. Or they're in a spot where they could trade up to the Bears or to the Cardinals, to one of those teams in the top 3, and those other teams that trade down will still be in a nice spot. But Seattle, right? Geno Smith, he had a great season last year. But will he be able to do it for another 2-3 seasons? Or even 1 year at the least? We really don't know. So if you're Seattle, I think you look at a guy like a Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, and Anthony Richardson, or even Will Levis, and you say, look, we can draft one of these guys, sit him for 1 to 2 years behind Geno Smith, and then we have our quarterback for the future once Geno's next contract is up. Because Seattle, they have a window right now. I mean, they legitimately have a window. The Rams are going to be rebuilding for many years. I think it's very easy to say that. I mean, they have no cap, no draft capital. Their team's going to be bad. The Arizona Cardinals, new head coach, no Kyler Murray for basically majority next season. And I just don't like that Arizona roster. I think they've built it very, very poorly around Kyler Murray. And then the only real competition in that division is the San Francisco 49ers. So if you're Seattle, I think that's a team that we're not talking about enough that could actually go out and draft a quarterback. Some other teams here, the Jets, I think they're going to try and go get Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers, and they could always potentially run it back with Zach Wilson. The Patriots, there's been some talk about Mac Jones being moved on from. I just don't see it yet. I think if it's going to happen, it'll be next year. Washington Commanders, this is a team that I could see trading up, but once again, Ron Rivera, their head coach, said they want to go out and get a veteran. So I don't think it's likely that they trade up, but it's always a possibility. And then I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, Tom Brady retired, so their only quarterback on roster is Kyle Trask. Their GM said they have a lot of faith in him. They're going to obviously add, so whether they sign a Derek Carr or a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Carson Wentz, or they decide, hey, look, we could possibly trade up and get one of these top 4 guys in this draft class. So we'll have an NFL mock draft coming out very soon, probably next week once the combine is over. That'll be the first mock draft of this NFL offseason. But moving on, we are going to do. First, we'll talk about the MLB Pitch Clock before we get to the NL West preview. Obviously, arguably the biggest rule change in Major League Baseball in its entire existence, basically, is the addition of this pitch clock to the major leagues this season. It's been in the minor leagues, I think, for what they said was 5 years. So they've been testing it for a while, and it finally has broken and came into Major League Baseball this season. And with spring training games underway, we're getting a very, very good look at what the pitch clock is going to be like this season. And I mean, if you don't know, the basic rules are the pitcher has 15 seconds to throw a pitch with no runners on base, 20 seconds with runners on base. There's some other rules that I guess I didn't know about, or most of us didn't know about, and that one is in regards to the batter. And that is that the batter has to be in the box and alert to the pitcher that he's ready to hit before 8 seconds hit the clock. If he doesn't do that, it is a pitch clock violation on the hitter, and a strike will be called against him. And we've already seen a few instances this spring training where that has happened. Okay, first of all, the 8-second thing is not a bad idea. I'm not complaining about the 8 seconds that you have to be in the box and ready to hit. Right, there was a clip of Manny Machado. I mean, he's still 1 foot out, taking his time, adjusting his batting gloves, staring at his bat with 3 seconds left. Obviously, they're going to call that, right? But for me, the problem is you have guys in the box. There's an at-bat yesterday. I don't remember what game it was. There was an at-bat yesterday. I think it was Mets-Astros, where the batter was in the box with 10 seconds left. In the box, looking at the pitcher, holding his bat out, getting ready to hit. Doesn't alert to the pitcher, but he's in the box, ready to hit, looking at the pitcher. He just didn't alert to him, so he gets a strike called. That is absolutely stupid. This guy, I think if you're in the box, you should be ready to hit. I mean, that's how it should be viewed. If you're in the box, you are ready to hit. You don't have to look at the pitcher and say, oh, I'm ready. That doesn't make any sense. You're in the box. As long as you're in the box with 8 seconds left, 2 feet are in the box with 8 seconds left, I think it's legal. You're perfectly fine. It's not a violation on the hitter, and there's obviously no violation on the pitcher. I just think if there's 2 feet in the box it should count as the batter is ready to hit. 2 feet in the box. If there's 1 foot in, 1 foot out with 8 seconds left, okay, you call it strike one. Perfectly fine. But as long as there's 2 feet in the box, I don't see for any reason why the batter has to make some sort of alert gesture to the pitcher telling him he's ready to hit before 8 seconds is ready. And then there was another instance. This was like one of the first spring training games over the weekend where bases loaded. I think it was bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases are loaded, like I said, tie game. And you get a pitch clock violation on the hitter. Once again, he had 2 feet in. He was looking at home plate, tapping, getting ready to hit. Shouldn't have been called a strike. And that strike ultimately ends the game. Obviously, if it's in the regular season, it sends this to extras. But there's a few things I think need to be changed about this pitch clock before we get to the regular season where games actually matter. First of all, I mean, we can't have a game end or a game go on to extra innings on a pitch clock violation. That is not baseball. That is not how baseball works. All right? In these high leverage situations where, let's say that game was a regular season game, bases loaded, 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, tie ball game, 3-2 count. Literally every hitter's dream of hitting a walk-off nuke. You can't have that game end on a 8-second batter's violation if he's in the box. If he's not in the box, like I've been saying, if there's 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or he's not in the box at all, okay, you can make the call because he was not in the box. But if there's 2 feet in the box like this batter did in that game that I'm talking about, if there's 2 feet in the box, there's no violation there. He's ready to hit. But you can't have a game during the regular season, a high leverage game. You cannot have a game end on a pitch clock violation because that is not baseball. That is not how baseball has been for 200 years. That is not how baseball has been played, and that is not how it should be played going forward. We should not have games end on pitch clock violations. It is absolutely stupid. It doesn't make any sense. For the pitcher's side, they're doing fine. They have 20 seconds to pitch, and there's been very few, if any, violations on the pitcher. It's all been on the hitter side of things. And for me, I mean, if 2 feet are in the box, you're ready to hit. I don't think you have to alert to the pitcher. I think it's freaking stupid. And MLB needs to make sure to iron those things out before the start of the season, before games actually matter. I will say I do like everything else about the pitch clock because, you know, I've been watching a lot of these spring training games, and I'm able to sit on, whether it's on the TV or I'm watching on my phone, I'm able to just sit here, watch the game. One pitch is thrown, and the pitcher immediately gets back onto the rubber, is set, and throws the pitch like 5 seconds later. So you're speeding up the action. There's not as much dead time. And you know, obviously when you play the game of baseball, it's completely different. The dead time, it's not boring when you're playing. But when you're watching, you know, if it takes 30 seconds to a minute between pitches, that's not what you're trying to watch. You're trying to watch the action. So I love, you know, how much faster it's getting because you can just watch and everything, and something is always happening. So you're not getting a lot of dead time. I just think some of these violations, all of the ones on the hitter are just, they need to be fixed. I think they're very stupid. All right. Final topic of this episode is the NL West preview. We're going through it every single division. Last episode we did the American League West. If you missed that, you can go check that out. That was the most recent episode of the podcast. But this episode, we got the National League West preview, standings predictions, all of that. So we're going to begin. We're just going to go from the first place team in this division. And this one's going to come as a surprise because for the first time in the last, 10 plus years, the Dodgers, in my opinion, will not win the National League West. I think the first place team in the NL West this year is going to be the San Diego Padres. This team made insane offseason acquisitions. First of all, they were in on Trey Turner and in on Aaron Judge. Imagine if this Padres team had Aaron Judge. Holy crap. That would be freaking insane. And imagine if this team had Trey Turner. But they didn't get either of them. Instead, they got arguably one of the best hitting shortstops, a guy who hits 300 every single year and can smash 20 homers and has been an all-star basically every single year of his career. Or at least over the past 4 seasons, he's been an all-star. That's Xander Bogaerts from the Red Sox. They brought him over. In addition to Juan Soto and Manny Machado returning back for another season, Fernando Tatis coming back from suspension, Jake Cronenworth, Ha-Seong Kim, Trent Grisham. This Padres team, lineup-wise, is absolutely loaded. First of all, Tatis is going to be suspended for the first, I think it's 20 to 25 games of the season. But this Padres lineup, when Fernando Tatis Jr. comes back to play, in my opinion, this is the best lineup in baseball. This is all according to Fangraphs, and then I put Tatis in this lineup. But leading off, you have Xander Bogaerts at shortstop, batting second, Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field. Number 3, Juan Soto in left. Number 4, batting cleanup, Manny Machado at third. Batting fifth, Jake Cronenworth at first. DHing, batting sixth, Nelson Cruz. Batting seventh at second base, Ha-Seong Kim. Batting eighth behind the plate, Austin Nola. And then batting ninth in center field, you have Trent Grisham. This team is absolutely loaded. I think this is easily the best lineup in baseball. And you have guys here. Fernando Tatis, I think what arguably was the best shortstop when he did last play. He was the best shortstop in the game. He's moving to the outfield. Xander Bogaerts is a top 5 shortstop. Manny Machado is a top 3 third baseman. And Juan Soto is one of the best young hitters and a top 20 player in the game of baseball. Cronenworth is super underrated. Nelson Cruz, he's almost 43 years old, but he can still be, productive at that DH spot. Ha-Seong Kim is an amazing player. Grisham had a down year, looking for some sort of resurgence. Austin Nola, they brought in Rougned Odor just yesterday. And then Matt Carpenter, they also brought in this offseason. On the pitching side of things, I think this team is still this team still has a very good rotation and a very solid bullpen as well. First of all, Joe Musgrove just broke his toe, so whether or not he's ready for the start of opening day, I guess we'll see. But this rotation has Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, Joe Musgrove, Michael Wacha, Nick Martinez, Seth Lugo, brought over this offseason from the Mets. And then this bullpen, Josh Hader, Robert Suarez, Luis Garcia, Drew Pomeranz, Jose Lopez, Tim Hill, Steven Wilson. This team last year, obviously, they made it to the NLCS. They won 89 games. And I think this team got significantly better this offseason. And compared to their division rival counterparts, the Los Angeles Dodgers, I think they easily, first of all, had a better offseason. And then second of all, they have a way better roster on paper than this Dodgers team. So for me, the Padres are going to hit. And I think, if their pitching struggles around the trade deadline, they're going to be a team that goes out there and tries to make a push for starting pitching or bullpen pieces at the deadline. I mean, they have insane prospect depth. Their number 1 prospect is a shortstop, Jackson Merrill. They have Dylan Lesko, one of the best high school pitchers from last year's draft. And then they have a catcher, Luis Campusano. He's 25 years old. He hasn't got a whole lot of time. They could always move on from him. So the Padres, I think they're going to be really, really good next season. And when I come out with my postseason predictions and all of that, I mean, this team, in my opinion, is going to go very, very deep into the postseason. And then they're going to be a team that if they need to make a move, they're not going to be scared to go out there and make a very aggressive push to get some more talent. So I have them winning the National League West. I think they could win at minimum 95 games and at max 100 plus. Coming in second place, I have the Dodgers. From a team last season that I think they won 114 games. They won 111 games last season. I think this team got significantly worse this offseason. First of all, you look at who they lost. Trey Turner went to the Phillies. Tyler Anderson went to the Angels. Justin Turner to the Red Sox. Cody Bellinger went to the Cubs. Andrew Heaney, Rangers. Craig Kimbrell to the Phillies. Chris Martin to the Red Sox. I think this team significantly got worse. And you look at the pieces that they added this offseason, they didn't add a whole lot. JD Martinez from the Red Sox. David Peralta from the Rays. Miguel Vargas is going to be coming up. He's one of their top prospects. Miguel Rojas from the Marlins. Jason Hayward signed as a free agent from the Cubs. Noah Syndergaard from the Phillies. This team is not as good as it was last season. All right, we'll read the lineup. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, JD Martinez, David Peralta, Trace Thompson, Miguel Vargas, and Miguel Rojas. Compared to a lineup last year that had Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Trey Turner, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Gavin Lux, this team is significantly worse offensively. And one person I forgot to mention was Gavin Lux. He was supposed to be penciled in as their starting shortstop this season, or second baseman, but he just tore his ACL, so he's going to be out for the whole season, and that is a huge loss. Gavin Lux last season played great baseball, and he's able to play multiple positions around the diamond, and with him being out for the whole season, it thins out their infield depth, and I think it really hurts this team offensively and defensively. This pitching rotation, I think it's better than the Padres. Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias he was second in National League Cy Young voting. Tony Gonsolin, Noah Syndergaard, Dustin May, Walker Buehler might be able to come back. He's still recovering from Tommy John. I think this rotation is better than the Padres, but in terms of offense and the lineup, I think the Dodgers have some issues. I mean, Mookie Betts is going to be great. Freddie Freeman will be great. Will Smith will be great. Max Muncy is a question. He was bad last season offensively. JD Martinez, he's 36 years old. David Peralta is 36. Trace Thompson had a great season last year, but can you really count on him to replicate that? Miguel Vargas, one of their top prospects, and Miguel Rojas has not been a good big league hitter his entire career. I guess the good thing for the Dodgers is that they have a lot of prospect depth. Diego Cartaya, their number one prospect, is a catcher. He will probably not come up this season, but you're going to have a lot of guys that do come up this season and make an impact. Bobby Miller, their top pitching prospect. Michael Busch, one of their top infield prospects. Miguel Vargas, obviously. Andy Pages, Gavin Stone, Ryan Pepoy, all of those guys are going to make an impact on this roster. I still think they'll be a playoff team. I just don't think they're going to be as good. For me, their ceiling is 95 wins, and their floor is 89. I still think they'll ultimately make the postseason. All right, third place for me. This one may come as a surprise. I have the Arizona Diamondbacks finishing in third place this season. A lot of people want to put the San Francisco Giants in this position. Obviously, in 2021, they won the division. Last year, they finished in third place. But we'll get to the Giants in a moment. But for this Diamondback squad, this is a team that could be very sneaky, and they could be sneaky good. First of all, they have the number one prospect or number two prospect in Major League Baseball, Corbin Carroll, an outfielder. This guy possesses elite speed, elite defense, and a solid above-average offensive skill set. He's 22 years old, left-handed hitter. Projected to play left field and lead off, followed by Ketel Marte, who had a down year last year, but was an all-star a few years ago for this team. He could play second base, center field, right field. He's a very versatile player for them. Jake McCarthy, 25 years old, playing the outfield as well. Christian Walker, very underrated first baseman, arguably the best defensive first baseman, and a guy that can hit 30-plus homers every single season. Josh Rojas at third, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. at the DH spot. He just got acquired from the Blue Jays. Alec Thomas in center, Carson Kelly behind the plate, Nick Ahmed at short. I like their bench additions too. Gabriel Moreno is arguably one of the best catching prospects in baseball. He came over from the Blue Jays. He's only 23 years old. Evan Longoria, 37 years old, came over from the Giants. And Kyle Lewis, he won a Rookie of the Year in 2020 with the Mariners, came over this offseason. He could be a guy that could be an X factor for this team's success. First of all, this team has a lot of speed. They're projected to have 3 guys stealing over 15 stolen bases next season in Josh Rojas, Corbin Carroll, and Jake McCarthy. This team's going to be able to put the ball in play, move runners, and then always, drive in runs as well. I think this is a very sneaky lineup. They do have a lot of lefties. They only have 4 righties. One of them is a switch hitter compared to their lefties. Their rotation has a lot of questions in it. Zach Gallen is one of the most underrated pitchers in Major League Baseball. He's a guy that I think could go out there and win the NL Cy Young next season. But the rest of this rotation has a lot of questions. Merrill Kelly last season was good, but will he be able to replicate what he did last season? Madison Bumgarner has not been good since he's came over to the Diamondbacks. Zach Davies has never really been a good pitcher in his career. And then Riley Nelson has done absolutely nothing in his big league career. This bullpen is solid. Corbin Martin, Kyle Nelson, Andrew Chafin they just acquired. Mark Melancon, Joe Mantiply are some pieces in that bullpen as well. I think this team, and compared to the Giants, which is I think the team they'll be competing with for this spot, first of all, I don't think the Diamondbacks make the playoffs, but I think they're a team, ceiling is 85 wins, floor is 80. This team won 74 games last season. When compared to the Giants, who we'll talk about right now, I think the Diamondbacks have a higher upside lineup than this Giants team. We'll get to the Giants right now. Their lineup is supposed to be Thairo Estrada, Mike Krzyzewski, Mitch Haniger, Jock Peterson, Michael Conforto, David Villar, Brandon Crawford, Lamont Wade Jr., Joey Bart. You're really only guys that you can actually count on to replicate what they did last season or do better is Mike Yastrzemski. Mitch